Taking a big picture look at the 2025 SEC football season. Who will be better or worse than they were last year? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. In today's episode, brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Always fun. We can catch up with our buddy Chris Marler. He is host of Locked On Gamecocks, writes for LouisianaSports.net. He also list your other places. I mean, you're everywhere.
Been bartending at the bowling alley Tuesdays and Thursdays. Pretty sick. Get free games and also half off rental shoes. Which you can wear those out now, dude. Especially on a dance floor. They're very slick. So totally. Other than that, no. Locked On Gamecocks, obviously writing for LouisianaSports.net and then running social media for ESPN 104.5. And then now that we're getting back into the actual season, we're going to start up Fourth and Wrong again with all of our shenanigans with me and Tyler Huck on our podcast we've been doing for about 6 years.
And a lot of people don't know this, but you were actually in Omaha running the crowd camera, where you were catching like every young co-ed you could catch on camera.
What is the job criteria for cameramen at baseball games? Because it is just 18 to 25-year-old, like it's like the most PG version of Girls Gone Wild. It's like the prelude to that. And then also I didn't notice this. This is about like the girl part, but in general, now that they're doing like the camera, like standalone camera where they're going up and down the aisles and they're like right here. Right. And it's like some like terrified mother who's watching her son pitch the biggest moment of her life, and he's like, Karen, how we feeling?
Yeah, it's literally the parent cam, that one. Like, it's like, hey, go find so-and-so's dad. No. Shortstop's dad, switch to outfield dad. Like, it's like they're finding every parent they can. But no, in the LSU Arkansas game that was just going on, I saw they cut to the crowd and it was on an old lady LSU fan, and it immediately like panned over to like the young, blonde that was next to her. It's like they're literally doing it in real time. No, not her. So,
right.
It is certainly that time of year. But Marler, let's jump into it. I figured it was it was kind of fun as we're starting to preview these rosters and look at what these rosters look like post spring and really start to lock into summer and fall ball and okay, what are these teams going to look like? I know you just did your quarterback rankings, and so I kind of wanted to jump around to a bunch of teams in the SEC, and let's just kind of talk about, is this team going to be better or worse than last year record-wise? Remember, there's a lot of things we can look at a team and say they've upgraded. The roster is better, but will the wins be better? And so that's where it's kind of fun to kick this around. And I want to start, we'll just start at the top. The team that finished 7-1 in the SEC last year, the Texas Longhorns. I'll just pose it to you. Are you buying or selling the Longhorns being in Atlanta in December?
Part of me wants to sell it. I think there's a better chance that they make it to Atlanta, and then I'm more apt to say that they will make it to Atlanta, but that they might miss the actual playoff because they could end up going 6-2 in this conference. But if they lose to Ohio State early, right? And listen, now we're in year 2. It's kind of like we were talking about the baseball thing earlier, kind of getting through, like having to go through a lineup for like the second or third time as a pitcher, like a lot more familiarity. They don't have as many cush home games. Like the schedule is still pretty manageable and easy, but they got road trips to Athens. I believe they play at Florida. They get A&M obviously at home, but I think in year 2, especially with a new starting quarterback, like Art should be good. But I mean, listen, Ewers was the number 1 ranked quarterback in the country and like an all-time recruit coming out of high school. And it wasn't like he had a bad career, but it wasn't like he really, was wowing us statistically year in and year out while he was there.
How about this for Texas? Billy Lucci was talking about their home slate. I had to look at it to be sure. I give them, tons of credit for going on the road opening at Ohio State week 1. Yeah. And when that was scheduled, they didn't know they were going to be the reigning national champs. So that's a tough game. But their next 3 home games, Mario, the next 3 games are at home against San Jose State, 11 a.m., UTEP, and Sam Houston, and then they're on the road at Florida, and then they're in Dallas for Oklahoma. Then they're on the road at Kentucky and at Mississippi State. So basically, they don't play their first home SEC game until November 1st against Vandy. And then the last 2 weeks of the season, they host Arkansas and A&M. Like, if you're a season ticket holder for the Longhorns, and I'm sure prices just went up after having a great year, but like, that's a tough home slate to sell to your fan base.
I saw somebody complaining about it the other day from, I think it was like either Texas media or a big Texas social media personality that was like talking about how it's a crime that we didn't get any more night games at DKR. And it's like, look at your schedule, man. Like, I mean, when Georgia complained about this in 2021, it was frustrating because they were playing a lot of really highly ranked opponents. Like the Arkansas game was a top 10 opponent and it was at noon, right? Like I get that gripe. But when you talk about Texas and the path that they have been generously handed, in their first year in the SEC and what their schedule's been, there's some tough environments they're going to have to go on. They have a lot of new faces that are going to be starting for them. But I love Sark, and so it's hard for me to say at any year that he's going to be in charge, especially with the talent he has on offense, that 10 wins is not the floor.
Yeah. Let's switch over to the team that is right behind them, 6-2 in the SEC last year. It was the Georgia Bulldogs, and they were a team that obviously, look, Kirby. Keep saying this. If anybody's earned the benefit of the doubt on reloading, it's Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. They've just recruited number 1, number 2 class constantly, and it's next man up. Gunnar Stockton, how good can he be? That's the big question. But I look at Georgia. I mean, obviously, their toughest games against Bama and Texas, they get at home. They obviously play Florida on a neutral field, and then Ole Miss, if you want to throw them in, they get at home. So, their road trips are at Tennessee week 3, which that'll tell us a lot about this Georgia team. But other than that, road trips at Auburn and Mississippi State. I think this schedule sets up well for Georgia because their toughest games are all at home.
Yeah, people forgot about this last year because they've reached a point as a program where they don't no one's going to make an excuse for Georgia anymore, right? So when they were looking at their schedule last year, and especially comparing it to Texas, and I love the fact that Kirby brought it up when he was on the podium with the confetti falling down after they beat Texas in the SEC championship game, because in their first 13 games of the season, they played 6 top 20 teams and 5 of them were away from home. I mean, that's just crazy that there's that much of a disparity between their schedule and other teams in the same league. I love the fact they get all those games at home. There are going to be some night games there in Athens, and they're going to get real rowdy. They got revenge games against Bama and Ole Miss, and then you get Texas coming to town. And now you get to start with the Texas thing, where it's not a revenge game. You're not just trying to beat them because it's 1 versus 2 probably in the conference, but now you get the chance to really kind of put your foot on their throat and kind of be the big bully that Bama was to Georgia for so long. I love that. And anytime you can tell me that Kirby Smart has a chip on his shoulder from last year, Gordy, without getting too much into it, people really forget the fact that they beat Texas twice. They beat them the second time with a backup quarterback for the second half of that game. And then after that, when they went to the college football playoff, there was a terrorist attack in New Orleans the night before the game where they postponed it. And then Kirby Smart's dad died during the game. There's a lot of stuff going on during that game that I would probably assume were pretty distracting. And I think he never wastes a loss, and I don't think he will this year either.
Yeah, and look, I talked to some Georgia folks who said, they practicing in a ballroom or going through your walkthrough in a ballroom at a hotel, and we couldn't leave the hotel room and all that. Again, Notre Dame had to deal with the same stuff. I just think you're right. That I would have loved to have played that game under normal circumstances against Notre Dame, and obviously I think it would have been played out different if Carson Beck was still the quarterback and healthy. So we will see on Georgia. All right, real quick, Tennessee finished 6-2 last year in the conference. Obviously, we know the big headline, they lose Nico Iamaleava, enter Joey Aguilar. This to me is one of the most fascinating storylines of the season, Marler, because how good can Joey be? I give the benefit of the doubt because Heupel's track record of coaching quarterbacks has been so good, but there might be a ceiling for how good Aguilar could be. And to me, that's all dependent on if Tennessee has 2, 3, 4 losses in the conference.
Statistically speaking, I made a graphic about this because, of course, I did a while back. But Nico is the highest ranked recruit that has ever played for Josh Heupel, especially at the quarterback position. He was statistically the worst quarterback in his system in year 1 as a starter dating back to when he was with Drew Lock at Mizzou. Like, I mean, his year last year, the thing is, you don't have to be a 5-star quarterback or have like some rocket arm or anything like that to play in that system and be elite in that system. You have to be accurate, and you have to be accurate downfield in 20, 30, 40 plus yards. We saw it all year in 2022 with Hendon Hooker. I don't know anything about Joey Aguilar at all. I think he was great as the backup 6th person in sync. I'm glad that he finally bounced back, and now he's replacing Nico, which is fantastic. It's a great storyline. But if he's accurate downfield, that's the whole key. Like that's I'm not worried about what they have on defense because they should be better there. I'm not really worried about what they lost on offense because they should be stacked with, especially the receiver position. But if he can be accurate, there's not a team in the SEC that has more boom and bust capabilities than Tennessee this year.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the least talked about things is that wide receiver core kind of underwhelmed last year, Tennessee, for having Squirrel White and Brew McCoy and all these guys like
Mike Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, well, he'll be a true sophomore this year, so you expect he'll play a bigger role. Chris Brazzell, I thought they underutilized at times last year, and he had some drops and whatnot, but Braylon Staley, and then they bring in these freshmen, Rodarius Jackson, Travis Smith. Like, I just think this is going to be a better overall core of guys who are bought in, want to be there, and they got to help their quarterbacks. So we will see on the Tennessee Vols. All right, when we return with Chris Marler, 6 teams in the SEC finished 5-3. Which team of that group does Marler think takes a step forward? We'll talk about that when we return here on Locked On SEC. But first, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. And look, if you have ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, whatever it is you're spending your money on, it is easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. They're going to be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. And we told you this before, Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is going to be a complete financial command center. It's going to track all your accounts, your investments, all your spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When you start using Monarch, you're going to realize just how much you're spending on stuff like food delivery, those monthly subscriptions to apps and streaming services and all that. It's going to make you want to budget smarter and save more. Go take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. You head to monarchmoney.com. It's monarchmoney.com. You use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That is going to get you 50% off your first year, 50. That's at monarchmoney.com. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. Start saving today. And again, Locked On College gets you half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. All right, as we dive back into it with our buddy Chris Marler, taking a look big picture-wise at the SEC in 2025. And Marler, as we look at 6 teams in the SEC, all finished 5-3 last year. It was a log jam in the middle. Again, people want to tell you the SEC stunk last year, and I'm like, no, it was just parity. There were teams beating anybody could beat anybody on any given week. But of the group of Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Missouri, I'll give you your pick. You could pick any one of those teams you think will be better, meaning 6 or 2 are better in the conference next year. Who is it?
So I personally think all of them are going to be right there again. Missouri is going to sneak up on people because of the talent they brought in, especially at some of the positions that people think are going to be a massive deficit from last year to this year. Kevin Coleman, kid from Mississippi State, I think is going to be the breakout star in the entire conference. But I like them. I like what Ole Miss has. Like Austin Simmons is obviously year 1 as a starter. He's only 19, been in college since he was like 12. He's Doogie Howser. But one thing I know about Lane Kiffin and any quarterback that's in his system is they're going to produce and put up big numbers. I like every single one of these teams to be right around that same tier this season. The 3 that stand out the most, and I'll say them in order, Bama, LSU, and then South Carolina. Bama is going to be a lot better and a lot deeper at positions they were not last year, specifically in the secondary and at receiver. The offensive line should somehow be better, but they've been also saying that for 3 years. And I just think that getting Ryan Grubb as the OC back in the fold with a quarterback that is probably a little bit more capable through the air. And keep in mind, Ty Simpson, I know he doesn't look like Jalen Milroe, but he was a 5-star dual threat quarterback when coming out of high school. LSU, I love their offseason because everyone made fun of when they lost Bryce Underwood, and then they got to take all that NIL money that they thought they had wasted after he went to Michigan and went on a absolute spending spree in the portal. And it not just got a ton of bodies in the portal, but got elite top 50, top 100 players, some of the top players at their position. Nick Anderson is going to be a problem at receiver. I love what he brings because he's a big body receiver they don't really have in place right now. They're going to be really good. They're going to be really good. South Carolina.
Just to add to LSU real quick, the difference in what they did in the portal this year versus last year they just added depth.
Right.
This year they added starters, like guys who are going to come in and start at multiple positions. It's what Ole Miss did.
Yeah, I think that was the most impressive thing about what LSU did, because every time you saw all the numbers, it was like, oh, Arkansas and Mississippi State brought in 29 or 30 players, or all these different people that were losing, upwards of 20 players and all that kind of stuff. LSU attacked this thing very, very smartly, and then went in and got like players that were, like you said, like top 3 overall in the portal at their position, and that was the case top to bottom. So I think they're going to be good. The thing with South Carolina, it worries me what they lost on defense, because they lost so much production and so much veteran leadership. Like Eamon Worry is an incredible 3-year starter at safety. Kyle Kennard was the defensive player of the year. Dude, you talk about the interior or defensive line with Tonka Hemingway and the guys you lost there. They were playing D tackle and still getting 4.5 sacks. How do they replace that with all these younger guys? I say all that to also say I think that they have the biggest difference maker of any team in the entire country in Lenore Sellers. And that kid is maddening to defensive coordinators and defensive players, the way he's able to escape, and evade like a rush and get out of a tackle. And then next thing you know, you have to basically keep up with his legs. And then also he's able to throw a ball at the flick of the wrist, like 40, 50 yards downfield for a touchdown. That, if we see the second half of last year, Lenore Sellers, I don't think it's like exaggerating or embellishing that he could be in New York.
Yeah, and the one underrated one is we're still waiting on the NCAA ruling on Rasul Faison, the running back. And if they could ever get him, I mean, this kid is a freak. Like, if they finally say he's cleared and ready to play, I no knock on Rocket Sanders, I think he could be better than what Rocket Sanders was for them last year.
So here's the thing. I don't know what he's going to do in the offense, because Rocket Sanders did a ton in this offense and really had to, because of some of the lack of stars they had at receiver especially. He was great running the ball and also catch the ball out of the backfield. The thing with Faison that people don't understand is he is like kind of like viewed as like a scat back, because he comes from like a group of 5 school, but he's big. I mean, he's 6 feet, 215, or 220. I think he was the number 4 overall running back in the portal. Also, side note, this is not me just having sour grapes or being frustrated because I run the South Carolina show, but he didn't play his first 2 seasons that are like the NCAA is using against him. Like this is not a situation like Pavia or a situation like any of these other players that have played for 7, 8, 9 years. He has played 3 years of college football, and 2 of those were at a JUCO. There's zero reason he has not been allowed to be, waived and cleared to play for this season yet.
Yeah, it's wild, and from what we're seeing, it's basically NCAA. There's no rhyme or reason to who they're ruling eligible and who they're not. Just take your pick. All right, when we return with Chris Marler, we will dive into the teams that finish in the bottom 7. Who of that bottom 7 can elevate themselves into perhaps the top 5 this year in the SEC? We'll talk about that next.
Bottom 7.
Roll along here, Locked On SEC. Big picture conversation in the SEC. Our buddy Chris Marler from Locked On Gamecocks joined us. And Marler, the teams that finished in the bottom 7 in the SEC. You had Florida at 4-4 last year, and obviously we know how strong they finished down the stretch of last season. But then at 3-5, you had Arkansas and Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt, they threw a parade for going 3-5. And then kind of the disappointments at the bottom. You had Oklahoma and Auburn at 2-6 in the conference. Kentucky went 1-7, and Mississippi State 0-8. Of that group of 7, who do you think has the best chance to perhaps get to 6-2, perhaps have a chance to play in Atlanta?
I think it's A&M, right?
They were in that group.
Good. Glad I brought it up then, for sure. It's definitely A&M. So they already have a head start on everybody in that group that you just mentioned. So there's that. The obvious answer I think that everyone's going with this offseason is Florida. But I keep going back to the fact that, like, I love DJ Lagway. I think he is a great talent. I love the fact that he is committed to that school and Billy Napier. But how good can he be with what's around him? And how good can he be? And how many wins does that generate, considering like how difficult that schedule is? So, I mean, they play, I think, 4 teams in the top 10 this season, and they play 3 of them back to back to back in the first 5 games of the year. That's going to be tough. I mean, now if they can get a couple wins there, then it could be a real fun ride watching them kind of do what A&M did at the start of last year and get to a great start in the first 2 months of the season. Outside of everyone else, man, I don't think it's Vandy because I don't think they have enough talent besides Pavia. Arkansas is interesting just because of the fact that Taylon Green is one of the best athletes in the entire country. But I don't know if there is a team in that group that is going to be able to somehow make that leap. If I had to just gun to the head, I would say, was Auburn included in there?
Yeah, Oklahoma, Auburn.
It's Auburn. The Oklahoma hype makes no sense to me because they were awful last year, and you're putting a lot of faith in an OC and a quarterback that looks like he's a really good, talented prospect, but has not played against a lot of good competition or elite competition since he's been a starter a season ago at Washington State. I mean, like, 1 ranked opponent last year, only 3 Power 4 opponents, not a lot of talent. Nothing like what he's going to see when he plays in the SEC. The other one, though, Auburn, and I know that Jackson Arnold was the worst quarterback statistically in the SEC last year, but what he's moving on from, which was the worst offensive line in the entire country, and a receiving corps that had lost their top 5 overall players at the position, he's moving from that to probably the best offensive line Auburn's had in a decade, and then probably the top 1, 2, or 3 receiving corps in the entire country this year. He is going to be surrounded by talent. As long as Hugh Freeze doesn't screw this up, I think they're going to be really, really good this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes back to. And our buddy Zach Blackerby, who does Locked on Auburn, said, I mean, it comes back to Hugh. Like, Hugh has got where's the magic elixir that you had at Liberty and Ole Miss and calling plays and all this? Like, he believed in Peyton Thorne. It never panned out with Peyton Thorne. Now you're buying into Jackson. I mean, he apparently did. They went through 1 year of Peyton Thorne and doubled down and said, we're going through a 2nd year of Peyton Thorne. Like, you could have upgraded. So, but obviously Jackson, on a 5-star talent, has all the talent in the world. I'm kind of with you. Look, there are some people, though, jumping on the Oklahoma train saying, look, the defense is always good under Venables. So if Mateer is the guy, but yeah, I can't look at that Auburn receiving core. And I mean, they added Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech with Cam Coleman, with Perry Thompson, all these ridiculous freshmen they brought in last year. Like, I just, there's weapons everywhere. There's no excuses now. Like, go score points.
Oh, he'll find one. He'll find one for sure. The other thing too is, and like, this doesn't sound like a thing that people bring up enough about. I guess it's like Auburn's offensive line has never been good. Like, I mean, Malzahn just could not recruit elite offensive linemen the entire time he was there. So it's been, I feel like 10, 15 years since they've had a really good offensive line, probably back to that 2013 team with the way they're in the football. But the other thing too, man, is the way they're going to go into this season. I love this Oklahoma hype because John Mateer may be incredible and turn that entire thing around, even though it's a very difficult schedule and there's not as much talent around them because of everyone they lost. But that whole vibe of going 6-6, finishing the year with a big win against an overrated Alabama team, and then getting a bunch of players in the portal and somehow keeping your job if you're Venables, that feels like the most Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M moment that we've seen in the SEC. Like that, like, it's the same exact blueprint, carbon copy of what happened with them in 2021.
So we're about to have SEC media days here, Marler, and obviously this is the first time in a long time. It's very rare, but we bring back every coach, and that's going from 14 to 16 teams. That's crazy that you brought back all 16 coaches from a year ago. So here in midsummer, I posed the question to you, of the coaches in the SEC, who is most likely not to be back next year? And you can name more than one.
Who's not going to be back next year? That I think it's going to be Sam Pittman, but I think it's going to be on his own accord. I think that I love Sam Pittman. I think everyone does, but I think apparently with like the hip stuff and the health stuff, I think it's probably just wearing on him. And that's also a guy doesn't have an ego to where he is going to feel like if he can't go at it 100% and improve this thing, then he's probably just going to step down himself. So I think he's probably the first to go. I'll give you a hot take here. I would be surprised if Mark Stoops moves on.
Yeah, that's kind of been, it feels like last year he had so much goodwill built up. And then last year that kind of went out the window, and the fans got all excited about, Mark Pope kind of rallied the troops in basketball, because there was a trend there where Calipari was just kind of coasting. Like football had kind of passed basketball in like most, passionate sport on campus. But, now look, you go another dismal season, sub 6-6, and don't make a bowl game again. Like, yeah, I think you're absolutely right that Stoops is out of Kentucky. Pittman possibly leaves at Arkansas. The only other ones I would look at, I mean, I guess if Lebby doesn't win another conference game at Mississippi State, I wonder if they're looking at going, did we make the wrong hire here? I mean, I think that is on the table. They can move on after 2 years. But the one you just mentioned, Venables, I mean, if they finish 5-7 or worse, I think they're making a change there.
I think he just got an extension or some new contract. I don't know if it was like, it might have been a pay cut. It might have been like the Harbaugh thing. I don't know. But I mean, seriously, like you're right, though, because that is a place that's not going to put up with not only being average to below average at football with the story tradition of that program, but they're definitely not going to do it while their arch rival is making it to the semifinals of college football playoff, has, the media's darling at quarterback and getting all this notoriety. The only other one I'll tell you, too, that I think that is like a sleeper here, I think that Freeze, if he has another underwhelming year, and they aren't like competitive or beat a big team this year, because he got very lucky last year against A&M. If they're not close against Bama and Georgia, he's going to be in trouble.
He is Chris Marler. You can check him out, Locked On Gamecocks. You can make that your second listen if you make Locked On SEC your first listen. And appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate Chris Marler for joining us. We'll be talking more SEC football all throughout this offseason here on Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.